Education Closet On Demand. I'm your host, Susan Riley. I'm an arts integration specialist and the founder of EducationCloset.com. And today I am sharing with you another strategy that I find works really well for teachers who are interested in using centers or inquiry-based design in a more flexible format in their classroom. There's a lot of debate going on about that right now, particularly in the arts areas. TAB, teaching artistic behavior, is one way that art teachers are looking at doing this. Music teachers as well are looking at using centers and being able to have a more flexible design in their classroom where students can explore various concepts in smaller segments, kind of breaking it apart and then pulling it back together. And that's a little challenging for arts area teachers when so much of what we do is driven by whole class design. Now, in classrooms, in general classrooms, centers aren't really new. We've been using those in general ed classrooms for a very long time for things like reading and writing and even math to a degree. And we find that it is successful because it's breaking apart the various pieces of the overall structure and allowing us to isolate where students are really having difficulties and where they're really shining in other areas. So this kind of builds upon that idea of a flexible learning environment that allows students a little more freedom to explore something with an overarching structure. So one of the ways that I do this in the music classroom is something that I call case file confidential. And today I'm actually going to share with you the worksheets that you can use that are adapted for an integrated lesson. But let me give you an example of how I do this in my music classroom first, and then how you can adapt it for an integrated lesson design of your choosing. So in my case file confidential, I actually provide students with something that has a sheet over top of it that it looks like, oh, it's confidential information. I can only open it when I get to that center. When you open it, in this case, we're actually talking about code FA, right? So FA is the solfège name for the fourth note on our scale. And it's a very hard interval sometimes for students to find at the elementary level, especially when we're talking about it in terms of solfège. So what I do is I isolate the hardest part about what I'm teaching, which is actually the note itself. Now, I've done this in a lot of different ways. I've worked on it with rhythms that I've isolated. I've worked on it with math that I've isolated. Things that you know are going to be a challenge for your students is a great piece to enter in to this strategy. So for this example, I used the solfège Fa. And so I have a mission on there that says to create a song. Your mission is to create a song containing Fa in several spots. Be sure to make him difficult to find and remember that he is a mysterious double agent. Specify what percussion instruments, play your ostinato, and be as creative as possible. Good luck. So essentially what I'm doing in this activity is I'm giving the students the answer. I'm saying the answer is Fa, right? And in the stories that I tell with my students, he's a double agent, right? So he can be both major and minor. He can play along with the part. He can kind of morph depending on the situation that he is in, because that's what that note really does. And I kind of give it a story background. Now, in this instance, I'm actually having students place him in music that they're writing so that he is quote unquote hidden, right? That he is this mysterious double agent. And we've identified an ostinato, which is a pattern that repeats. So they need to create an ostinato that also contains Fa. And so what I'm doing is giving them the answer first, Fa, and I'm having them create the clues that other groups can use to find him. So that's the first rotation of this center, is for the group to create a situation where Fa would appear, where my most challenging element could appear as clues for another group. We then would rotate and the other groups would come and try and decipher the code of finding where Fa is within the created piece from the other group. So in this situation, I'm only doing 2 rotations. I'm doing a creation rotation and I'm doing a kind of analysis rotation. You can rotate this as many times as you want. If it is a complex piece that you're working on, you could rotate this 3 or 4 times, whatever fits the bill for you. But in this case, I only rotated them twice. Now, I also included a list of materials that they would need. For instance, a staff, which was provided below, a melody containing at least 2 fas in it, an ostinato in duple meter, which means in, 1 and 2 and 3 and, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, duple meter, and creativity. So I'm providing them with some of the materials and I'm having them think ahead about what am I looking for. I'm providing that right within the activity itself. All right, so that's how I would do it in the music classroom. Here's how this might look in an integrated classroom. So let's say that I am looking to connect the music piece to a sentence. So I'm looking to have the music accompany a story structure so that the music is actually telling the story, sort of like programmatic music, where think of Peter and the Wolf or the Firebird story, where the music is actually telling the story without words. I could have those pieces in here. In fact, I might use Peter and the Wolf or the Firebird and pair it with the folktale that goes along with it. And then each center rotation, isolate the part that I want students to focus on. So for instance, if they're reading the text, I might have them isolate the plot line and have them identify what are the areas of the plot going on in here, right, that are providing the clues, because here is the overall plot. I'm giving them the plot and I'm having them isolate areas where they could put in different pieces to showcase that plot overall. In another station they could go to, they could think about what they just planned at the previous station for the plot and what instrument choices would they choose to put in there. So in this case file confidential, the answer really is maybe the Firebird suite or the Peter and the Wolf suite. And I'm really looking at maybe sentence structure, plot development, and how instruments can tell those stories. So I could have students isolate each of those pieces, put them together, and then combine them in one case file, which another class could then take a look at, or each student within the class that had a role of maybe plot development in the story would have to figure out the instrument side, and the instrument side would have to figure out the plot line in the story. There's lots of different ways that you can go with that. But case file confidential is really great because it adds this mystery to it that students really love. I also find it successful because I'm not looking for the answer. I'm taking that burden away from my students, and instead I'm asking them, how do you get to the answer? That's what I really want to know, and it lets them know that that's what I'm interested in their thought development. It's not about the end result, it's about how you get there. So I hope that you enjoyed today's quick tip for you and that you can use this in your classroom in really creative ways. Feel free to download the template that is in our post today. And if you use it, come back and share how you used it and what went well, what didn't go well, and how we can maybe modify this for even more integration opportunities. Thanks so much for joining me this week, and I look forward to seeing you next week on Education Closet On Demand.